Hello and welcome back to the That's Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to the last, for right now, end of the decade list for this channel. So, and what better way to end off one of these end of the decade lists than, of course, with a personal top 10 metal albums of the 2010s. Before I do get into the 10 list, I'll definitely briefly go through that. You're probably going to see some typical albums from me. Some you should at least expect for me to show. You might see some new ones. We'll see. And as far as the number one, you might expect one of these, at least the album, to be number one for at least me at least. But you may not. We'll see. Without further ado, let's get in number 10. From Beyond, from Enforcer. It's easy enough for me to want to throw this into the list here. I mean, yeah, it might be a little low, but it doesn't take away for the fact that this album was a frequent player when this came out. And of course, when receiving it in the mail, it was, 2 times, 3 times a day, basically, it was on my stereo. This was a great album from Enforcer, and this definitely, to me, really, it definitely propelled Enforcer even further, at least in my book, is probably, to me, definitely, in many ways, one of the most respectable new wave or traditional heavy metal bands. Definitely it's a great contender also for even being one of Enforcer's most, probably their best album. Some will say Diamonds. Some might even say Death by Fire. But for me, it's From Beyond. This was a hell of an album from Enforcer, and it was definitely worthy of being in my personal top 10 metal albums of the 2010s. It's just a great album. Coming in at number 9 is Where Evil Dwells from Ranger. This was a phenomenal album when it came out. I mean, again, receiving it in the mail, and again, just immediately I popped into the CD player, and it just, again, from DEFCON 1 to the very last Storm of Power, this was a great, I would say just a very well put together speed metal album from Ranger. I mean, there's definitely a little bit some thrash influence on here. Definitely, of course, classic metal influences and stuff, but it definitely ends in that camp of Ancient Steel and just an Exciter, and at times early Megadeth, just within that range. And I mean, again, the guitar work on here is just fantastic. Just a solid, full throttle, high-speed metal album. Just great, just a great full-length album. And again, it just seems like it's an album that Ranger really didn't top much, but it's definitely a great album from Ranger. So Where Evil Dwells here at number 9 for me. Coming in number 8 is Burning Leather from Oz. Now, you definitely should know by now how much I love Fire in the Brain. That is definitely one of Oz's most classic album. That's probably, again, the most defining album from Oz. But for me, Burning Leather, this was, of course, was a comeback album. After years of not being together, like the last album that Oz had released prior to this album that was released in 2011 was Roll the Dice, which was actually, 20 years prior. It was 20 years, I believe. Roughly 30 years. It was definitely quite a long time. And again, that came out again 1991. But they came back many years later, 2 decades basically, and they just threw out definitely one of the most strongest albums from Oz. I would say this is probably the best, or the second best after Fire in the Brain. Of course, there is at least some re-recordings here. It's like this album, of course, is basically half new recordings and half re-recordings. Because you get, of course, re-recordings of Searchlights, Fire in the Brain, Turn the Cross Upside Down, which was actually a not album track. It was released as a 7-inch following Fire in the Brain. Could have easily been recorded during those sessions. Gambler and, of course, Total Metal and Third Warning being those two songs both being off of the Third Warning album, which conceded Fire in the Brain. But of course, the newer tracks that was for the sound. I mean, Dominator, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, Seasons in the Darkness, Burning Leather, and Enter Stadium are just fine classic slab of just old school quality metal. I mean, Oz, while being a Finnish band, were definitely had that new wave of British heavy metal feel to them. They definitely sounded like a band that it almost seemed like that they were left out of the British movement, but because of their due to the heritage. But this is basically has a lot of that feel to it, and it's a fantastic album from Oz, and definitely ended up being one of my favorite metal albums from the 2010s. This was just a great album. So there, at number 8, Burning Leather from Oz. Of course, coming at number 7, following Oz, of course, is another classic metal band. This is, of course, Firepower from Judas Priest. Just a lot of low expectations, though, when it came into this album prior. I mean, before I ever heard any samples of this, there was a little bit of low expectations, wondering whether or not if they were going to rectify what I thought kind of bogged down Redeemer of Souls. And when I ended up hearing some of the samples for Firepower, I mean, of course, prior to that, hearing that Tom Allom, and of course, at this point, definitely the most picked or most overused metal producer being Andy Sneap. I mean, not to knock the guy down, but it just seems like, again, everyone just seems to really just go for Andy Sneap a lot whenever they want to pick a producer to produce their metal album. I mean, except Saxon and Megadeth for a little while. It's just like, goddamn, he was like almost everywhere. But the minute I heard that, I mean, of course, it really kind of, it was a little bit there. It was a little up there. I was like wondering whether or not if this was going to be too typical modern metal sounding. But what, from the samples that I heard, just at least took me, it definitely took me back a little bit. I was like taken back quite a bit. I was like, whoa. And then when the album came out, I mean, of course, another one that I almost kind of thought that was going to be a little tough is the fact how long the album is and how many songs there are. But again, all of those negatives completely disappeared. This was a great album from Judas Priest, and to me, it's every bit of at least worthy of being one of Judas Priest's best albums. I mean, right now, this is for sure one of their best albums. It's just definitely shows no matter how old you can be or how old you can be, I mean, you can still at least put out something quality. I think Judas Priest, I mean, we've seen, again, bands like Saxon and Accept, for at least, for reference, goddamn. But definitely Firepower was definitely a album that definitely took me by surprise. I really didn't think they would at least put out one more really good album. Some might say, I know that there's definitely some people that will still say this isn't anywhere near the quality of the 70s, or at least the 80s material. But to be quite honest, though, Judas Priest has had so many different eras that it's almost kind of difficult for a band really kind of just go back to one certain era. Again, and of course, Judas Priest was one of those bands that just always had evolved through every decade and every era, and Judas Priest just finds a way of at least finding that balance. So Firepower was just a great album. So there at number 7, just a fantastic album from Judas Priest in my book. Now coming at number 6 is The Guillotine from Vulture, and to be quite honest, this was a fantastic album. I mean, again, I love their EP a lot. Again, it was a great EP. It was a Victim of the Blade and a Victim to the Blade or something, and it was a great EP. So I was so when when hearing that they were gonna put out their full-length album, I definitely was on board, and what I got was definitely one brutal. Almost at times, I mean, this could have easily been in my thrash metal list. This at times really has a real old school, brutal thrash metal feel, but it definitely has a lot of speed metal feel. Like almost imagine Rage, or even I would say Creator and Agent Steel all got in one room and just jammed. This is this is basically what you get. You just get Vulture here. Just a great album. Of course, their horror film influence on here. I mean, of course, as always, I definitely should point out that that their mascot is the hands, basically the leather gloved hands, which to me is a very much was something I always kind of very associate with Italian horror films, for that matter. Especially like with film director like Dario Argento and his films. Like, it definitely has a great throwback. And again, being a fan of those kind of movies was definitely another that really just set me over with these bands. Like, just a fucking good album, though. I mean, this is just fantastic. I mean, just a great blend of just sheer velocity, but combined with hooks and melody and just sheer... I guess almost I can say technicality, and even within the guitar playing. I mean, some of the guitar solos, for at least these guys being German, and almost kind of bordering a little bit on that German thrash feel, the guitar soloing isn't completely that sort of real, almost raw, unhedged kind of guitar solo that soloing that you got with bands like Crater and Sodom. Instead, it's very almost very clean in some ways, but it still has a way of being very chaotic sounding. This was a great album from Vulture, and I know they definitely followed it up with, once again, I'm probably gonna forget about it, Ghastly Graves and something like that, I forgot. Not a very easy title for me to remember for some reason. Anyway, so I don't want to go on too long. This was a great album. It was just, again, worthy of being in my list, because, again, this was a played album for sure. It was on the CD player every day. So the Guillotine here at number 6 from Vulture. And again, it was also one of my number 1 albums also of 2017. So there at number 6. Coming in at number 5, following it is again my number 1 speed metal album of the 2010s, and was also my number 1 album of 2016. Is of course is In Satan We Trust from Baphomet's Blood. I don't have to go on too long about this album. I mean, this was a hell of a freaking player. I mean, the minute I found out on the day that this album, that Baphomet's Blood were releasing a new album, In Saint We Trust, I was so looking forward to it. And when I definitely heard it, oh my god, did my jaw drop. I mean, I loved every bit of their albums prior to this, but this one just literally, this was it. This was like the icing on the cake. It literally was one that just set me over. To me, this is Baphomet's Blood best album. This is their best album by far. What a fantastic album from them. I mean, this is definitely whatever they were doing before was perfected on this one. Just a fantastic album for Baphomet's Blood. Enough said. Here at number 5. Now coming in at number 4 is, again, this was also my number 1 new wave of British heavy metal album of the 2010s. It's just a great album. That's, of course, it's Atom by Atom from Satan. Definitely I had to throw this album in here. I mean, this was a great album. I mean, Satan, I mean, not every band can you say are able to come back with their original band, at least with their classic lineup, and are able to put out just solid strings of albums, and that's what Satan were able to do. I mean, these albums, I would say, were just as good as Court in the Act, if not even at times better. Just the way of the quality that they were able to at least to put together on these albums, it just says a lot. What a great album this was, and to me, this is probably right now my favorite Satan album of the most recent reunion albums. I mean, there's just not a bad song here, and of course, the very last track, "The Fall of Persephone," is what literally is what holds the whole album together. It's what brings the whole album together. It's a fucking great track. So there, at number 4, "Annam by Annam" from Satan. Now, coming number 3, this could have been also my number 1 album, number 1 metal album of the 2010s, but this is just a great fucking album, and you know how much I love these guys. It's Ambush, Firestorm, their debut album. What a great debut album. I mean, there were the new wave of traditional heavy metal movement was definitely full of at least some really good debut albums. But Ambush for me is the one that literally takes the cake for it. What a great album that really, to me, I love the movement as much. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but to be quite honest though, there is some bands, not every one of them, I would say, hits a lot of the ballpark in terms of when trying to come up with hooks and just good musicianship, and also a killer singer who literally can just push himself to those limits, at least over the limit in terms of trying to put out something that at least is just good, and that's something that Ambush was able to do. I mean, what is it? Oscar Jacobson, one of my favorite singers to come out of the new wave of traditional heavy metal movement. I mean, what a great fucking singer. Just as his range and everything is, to me, it's just something I think not a whole lot of bands is able to pull off. I mean, if there's anyone that ever says that the new wave of traditional heavy metal movement falls apart in a way isn't anywhere near what it should be because of singers, and not really holding up a candle to some of those, at least to the greats and everything. I think Oscar Jacobson, I think, is one that I would say is easily holds a candle to some of them. I mean, a guy is a great fucking singer and is able to really really lift the album a little more higher. Just a great fucking band, great album. I'm also looking for their newest album, Infidel. Can't wait. So there, at number 3 here, for my favorite metal albums of the 2010s, Firestorm from Ambush. Coming in number 2, not too behind. This was also my number 1 album of 2018. Bullet, Dust to Gold. Just like the same things I said for Baphomet's Blood. To me, this is probably Bullet's best album right now. I mean, they've got some good albums prior to here, but everything just comes together on this one with the hooks, with just the overall fast-pacedness. I mean, it's so consistently good from beginning to end. There's just not a weak moment. Every bit of this album is as good as any of their stuff. If not, again, this to me is a crowning achievement for Bullet. And definitely one of Bullet's best albums, and for me, one of my favorite metal albums of the 2010s. It's definitely an album that I will go to all the time when I'm in that mood. I mean, especially when listening to newer albums, I've got that real old school classic metal feel. This album just contains all of it. What a great album from Bullet. So there's my number 2, Dust to Gold. Now number 1. It's Subversion from Ram. I mean, this was my number 1 album of 2015, but it's also my number 1 metal album of the 2010s. I mean, this to me is easily one of the most brilliant fucking classic metal albums of the 2010s. Again, just the same thing I was saying with Ambush. If anyone has ever had any doubts that any of these new wave or traditional heavy metal movements can't make a classic metal album, I would say, to me, they are dead fucking wrong, and I am going to dispute that to the very end. Subversion is, to me, my dispute. This album is by far one of the most brilliant fucking metal albums that come out of the 2010s. I mean, this to me is what I love about at least the whole classic heavy metal genre, and even a lot of the underground metal genre stuff as well. I mean, this album just has it all for me. I just love every bit of it. It's got some great hooks. It's got the sort of the almost aggressive, almost pure sheer overdriven velocity of some of my favorite metal bands, and they were just able to take all of that and definitely take it a little step further, in my opinion. This was a fantastic album from them, and to me, this is also my favorite Ram album. This is just a fantastic album, and again, I'm going to say it again, this is my favorite metal album of the 2010s, and I'm going to say that to the very end. Great album from Ram, and just a fantastic metal album. So there you go. There's my top 10 personal favorite metal albums of the 2010s. Definitely let me know in the comment section below what were your favorite metal albums of the 2010s. With that, I hope you all enjoyed these end of the decade lists. I'll be back here with more original content again, some different stuff, some more reviews. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash Shit Sam out, and I hope, and again, I'll see what the 2010s brings us. Again, what a great way to end the decade off. So, hope you all enjoyed. Take care.